Let's say you suffer from, or you know someone who has something called ulcerative colitis. Have you ever heard of that disease? Unfortunately, it's fairly common out there. Ulcerative colitis, what is it? It's a lifelong disease characterized by inflammation of the lining of the large intestine. People suffer from it. I'm going to make this brief. I don't want to do health questions today. I'm going to do politics and whatever, okay? But this is very important. So you see ulcerative colitis. Now, many of us are sold on omega-3 fatty acids, and then many of us think that linoleic acid is good for us, meaning flaxseed oil. Many of you heard, use flaxseed oil, and many of us take tons of flaxseed oil, right? What you don't know is that a major study has just been published in Europe, which shows that some kinds of polyunsaturated fatty acids actually raise colon ulcer risk. And that includes foods rich in linoleic acid. They're not good for you, particularly if you're suffering ulcerative colitis. So I don't care what your massage therapist told you. I don't care what your astrologer told you. Listen to a PhD in epidemiology and nutrition who has studied this for 35 years. A new study, which is a legitimate study, which analyzed 203,000 men and women ages 30 to 74. That's a big study. This is not 8 people in a chiropractor's office. They discovered that people who consumed foods that are particularly rich in this type of polyunsaturated fatty acid, linoleic, and that would include, I'm going to read you the list, have a higher risk of developing ulcerative colitis against those who consume the least. Now, on the other side, those who ate fish and fish oils had a lower risk of the disease. So that's something that you should know, both positive and negative. So now, to summarize this, I want to read to you a short list of foods rich in linoleic acid. You ready for this? Canola oil. I don't think you're going to believe what I'm telling you. Soybeans, walnuts, flaxseed, linseed oil, and marijuana. That's right. You potheads are actually probably inducing many diseases, not the least of which is a lifelong disease called liberalism. But excessive marijuana will also load your body up with linoleic acid, and you have to understand what I'm talking about. Now, I'm talking about linoleic acid, not linolenic acid. So now we're going to look up linoleic acid. Godric, get me the correct one now, linoleic acid, because this is something a little different. Linoleic acid. Let me finish up the linoleic acid thing for you, just so you don't get confused. Let me start again. If you have ulcerative colitis, or someone in your family has painful inflammatory bowel disease known as ulcerative colitis, understand a major study came out which shows that a certain kind of polyunsaturated fatty acid and heavy margarines, not butter, may be increasing their risk of this disease. Foods or oils high in linoleic acid, okay, high in, that doesn't mean eliminate them all, and it doesn't mean if you don't have the disease you should even think about it. But let's say you do. Your doctor doesn't know any of this. He puts you on medicine. That's all he knows is burn or poison a disease. They know nothing about preventing disease, and they know little about treating disease with foods. I've studied it for 30 years. Does it make me a world's expert? No, but I know something about it. I can read the literature. So if you have an inflammation of the lining of the large intestine, or your daughter does, unfortunately a lot of women do, it's known as an autoimmune disease, look into what kind of food consumption you are engaging in, or your daughter. Linoleic acid may inflame this disorder. And here are the foods or the dietary sources of linoleic acid that you really want to limit if you have this disorder. The highest on the list is safflower oil at 78%. Safflower oil, in other words, which we've been brainwashed into using, may be fine for people who don't have ulcerative colitis, but it should be eliminated, in my opinion, if you do. 78%, grapeseed oil 73%, poppy seed oil 70%, sunflower oil 68%, hemp oil 60%, corn oil 59%, wheat germ oil 55%, cottonseed oil 54%, soybean oil 51%, Walnut oil, 51%. Now, let's cut it off there. Peanut oil is 48% linoleic. These are lower. Sesame oil, 45%. Now you go down the list. Canola oil is 21%. It's not that high. Linseed oil is 15%. Lard, now already you're dealing with food components that have almost none. And those would consist of lard, 10%, olive oil, 10%, palm oil, 10%, cocoa butter, 3%, butter, 2%, and coconut oil, 2%. It's interesting, my mother, God rest her soul, lived to 88, knew nothing about nutrition, so I thought. She said, I don't know, I like butter. I'd argue with her. No, Ma, butter causes heart disease. Well, it is true that butter for certain people is to be avoided. We're talking about ulcerative colitis here. So you see, this is the problem. When you start looking at one disease instead of the other and you forget there's a whole panoply of things you have to worry about all at once, it can drive you crazy. And many people just give up and say, the hell with it, I'll eat what I want. That's not the right answer. The right answer is a moderate amount of some of these foods. And if you have illnesses like ulcerative colitis, you eliminate the high in linoleic acid foods. So to review, I'll put it up on michaelsavage.com. It's new information from a new study, and I like to give you this information as I get it here on the Savage Nation. 1-800-449-8255, michaelsavage.com. Fatty acids raise colon ulcer risk. Did I come up with the study? No. Is it published in the Journal of Paleontology from Alaska State Prison? No. It was not published in the Alaska State Prison by S. Palin editor. This was published in a journal called Gut. I know it sounds funny to you, but Gut is actually a legitimate peer-reviewed scientific journal. Unlike climate science, when it comes to gut science, I think that there's less corruption. Although I could be wrong about that as well. Who knows whether there's kind of politics in the gut world today. My gut tells me that gut is a reliable source. Hey, God, what is so funny about this? So, in other words, that's the story. What should you eat? Well, what should you eat? Fish, take omega-3 fatty acids, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, eat a lot of fish, eat nut oils, and that's the story. And avoid the diets that are rich in linoleic acid. Try to get foods low in linoleic acid along